I'm going live first, so I'm going to post theirs on. Yeah.
It was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in. It's a long 12 hours, the power's out again. I pray for inner strength and that we don't lose no lives. Just another day in the first responders' eyes. Half a cup of coffee's gone, the first run comes in. A car slid off the road, there's a family trapped within. My heart beats like a hammer, I can barely catch my breath. I'm thinking the worst and hoping for the best. Yeah, we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference in the first on every scene. It's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this burden when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on when those sirens are gone.
Hey, welcome to the award-winning Mad Radio Show and your First Responder Network with John and Sam, providing first responders with resources and vetted services to help heal our heroes. We are coming to you live from Globe Life Park, the home of the Fishbowl Radio Network in the heart of the Entertainment District here in Arlington, Texas. We have a great show today, and Sam, man, tell us all about it.
Well, hello, everybody. Are we going to play catch-up first?
Okay, let's play catch-up first.
I mean, we have two amazing human beings with us today, but I want to condense and make it like a whole big surprise at one time.
All right, okay, that works. That works.
Got to keep it interesting here. It's been quite a week.
I know. And before we get into our guests and what the show is going to be all about today, there's been so much going on in the news. Mm-hmm. There's been so much going on with our first responders. And, man, God bless. I just want to give a shout out, and God bless every one of you that still have the courage, the strength, and the mental stamina to get up and go to work every day. I don't know how you guys do it. I hope you are taking care of yourselves as well. But, man, just watching it, being from the sidelines, it's hard for me as a retired officer to see you out there fighting this fight with no support network in some of these cities. So just please keep your head on a swivel, take care of your families, and God bless you for doing what you're doing.
Yeah, it's a really tough climate, especially, I will say this last week certainly has been interesting. You and I don't cover news and current events, but we kind of do.
Yeah.
And if you haven't, I'll say caught either mine or John's rants on our own personal Facebook pages, we were kind of pissed with everything going on with 9/11. You can connect the dots very easily. The history of this country is under attack. Certainly every 9/11 a memorial that's planned is under attack. And I would love to give a shout out to the city of Arlington. The folks in Arlington, it was a long process, but they realized that it is time for the community to come together. And so we have our permits in hand for the 9/11 Heroes Run, which is put on each year by the Travis Manion Foundation, which I head up here in the DFW area. And so we are live. We got a live race going on Saturday, September 12th, River Legacy Park right here in beautiful Arlington. Thank you, City of Arlington,
That's
for
big. That's big.
allowing us to come out, the first responders, the firefighters, to pay tribute and to never forget that day, because we can't afford to forget. There's too many things that are being pushed aside, that are being torn down, that are being buried, that are being skewed. You can put any adjective on it, and it really is a huge cause of stress, of anger, of sadness.
Well, I was very stressed this week because of that, and you know my rant and your rant that went on last week, and when you say connect the dots. All right, let's. I want to make this really brief, but I'm going to go over a couple of things, and then you decide for yourself, especially in New York. All right, so if you're following De Blasio and you're following, Mayor and Governor Cuomo, let's start from the beginning, okay? One, there was a Back the Blue rally. Ted Nugent was supposed to come in. All right, Ted Nugent was denied access to New York City because he had to go into a 14-day quarantine, right? But the VMA Music Awards are allowed, and all the artists and pop stars that are coming in from all over the country have been released of any quarantine. They don't have to quarantine. That's one. Two, the 9/11 Heroes Museum turned around and said, we cannot put the light show on. We cannot put the tribute to lights for our heroes because of the coronavirus. It takes 40 guys to do the lights, and we can't risk their health. But as soon as the tunnel to towers, private organizations stepped up, guess what? They found a way to do it safely, and they're going to get those lights back on. Then the 9/11 Museum decided to backtrack and said, it was a money issue that we couldn't do that. So there's a little discrepancy there. Now, Commissioner Daniel Nigro of the FDNY has been told to tell all his firefighters not to go to 9/11 ceremonies for the risk of COVID. One, the commissioner, I know the commissioner. I know of him. I've met with him as a chief and as a firefighter. He was always been true to his brotherhood, but as a commissioner, he falls under, once again, De Blasio. Okay, just as the 9/11 memorial falls under De Blasio and Cuomo. So now the next statement is De Blasio and the commissioner for the NYPD are refusing and making all weekends canceled, so all the NYPD has to work weekends. Do you see where I'm going here? Do you see that the city, who is defunding our first responders, threatening layoffs for our EMTs, cutting manpower within our fire department, they do not want the general public to honor and remember our first responders, because I remember that day. I remember that day how a nation came together and supported our first responders when those towers collapsed. I remember that day, and I remember for months afterwards how a nation together, black, white, didn't matter what color you were, what religion you were, what sexual orientation you were, we came together as a nation. We were not divided. Connect the dots, folks. The current climate is trying to keep us divided from our first responders. And if we keep doing this, if we keep this current narrative going, you're going to get what you wish for, and it's going to be anarchy.
Well, I think some cities are already realizing that, having the National Guard now dispatched. Wisconsin. I mean, in Wisconsin, it's come to that. How many more people need to die? I I never used to believe in conspiracy theories. I just didn't. Maybe it was because I work for the government, but I don't know. This seems to be a completely calculated attack on our men and women on the front lines, and it's almost like they want it to have a disastrous effect, not only for the first responder, but for the first responder's family, for everything that a first responder stands for. And I'm not just talking about police officers, I'm talking about all first responders. Mm-hmm. There is an outright attack. So, I mean, what are we left to do? And yeah, I say we because John and I, we don't wear the badge anymore, but we still wear the badge. It doesn't leave us. And, I think it's a great segue into what we're talking about today.
Let me just say what I just want to add on to what you just said. We're getting to a point in society where we might as well just do away with the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
Because we are not waiting for facts anymore. We are judging and jurying over social media, over videos, grainy, and speculation. What happened in Wisconsin, be it justified or not justified, we need the courts to figure that out.
Did you also notice that a minor's name was released?
No, I did not know that at all.
Yeah, the shooter's name.
Oh, and he's a minor?
He's 17.
Well, here's another thing. And 2 innocent lives. Well, I'm not going to say innocent, but two
other lives. I don't know the video.
But I'm not going to judge.
Yeah,
but 2 other lives were taken because of mob rule. Mm-hmm. We are losing lives because we are going away from law and order. We are going away from our criminal justice system. We are not letting the justice system get due process. And we're in for a downfall. So, with that note, go ahead.
We're in the downfall.
Bring in some happy notes.
We're in the downfall, people. So, what do first responders do when we're in a downfall? It's called choir practice.
Yes.
All right? I mean, hey, after 9/11, it was... if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about singing. I'm looking at comments here. No, that would mean going to a bar or just picking up whatever and going to your home every night and drinking your way to sleep. Or worse. And again, that's the topic of what we're talking about. We're talking about addiction. And I'll speak for myself. For those of you that don't know my story, alcohol saved me and was killing me at the same time. It allowed me, it saved me because it allowed me to sleep. It allowed me to numb out. So I didn't have to deal with what was going on, which was post-traumatic stress, which I had no idea about until I got a clinical diagnosis. And with that, it also took me to the depths of hell where, sitting in my basement with a gun to my head. And then I got help. And the one thing that hasn't changed, and I know it goes back way before me, John, way before you, is this, I don't know, an agreement maybe that alcohol is okay. The alcohol is an okay way to...
ease the pain, numb it.
Right, ease the pain.
Things go away.
Right. Well, they don't go away. We think they go away. Right. They don't really go away. So on our show today, we have Melissa Caldwell-Engel and John Edmondson from Healing Springs Ranch. You guys may recognize John Edmondson's name. We've had him on before.
Welcome, guys and girls.
Yes. When we say guys, it's everybody. It's everybody.
You know what? In this day and climate, you got it. Yeah.
So a little bit about Melissa. She is a licensed professional counselor, and she has over 30 years experience in the mental health industry. She's a subject matter expert in treating complex trauma and related mental health symptoms. She's on a mission to destigmatize mental health, yay, 2 thumbs up,
yes,
and addiction through educating and fostering the development of organizational leaders, human service providers, and clients to respond more effectively to the impact of childhood trauma at the individual and societal level. She co-founded and serves as a clinical director for Healing Springs Ranch. And she is one of the core developers of the Life Works Wellness Program, which is an intensive retreat for life balance and optimal performance. God, we could use that right now. She's a co-founder of the Trauma Recovery Associates. And you guys may have heard this because it was a program created in response to the Catholic Church's sex abuse scandal back in 2002. So amazing work. And equally as amazing, we again have John Edmondson. He is the director of wellness and life coach. He helps integrate preventative medicine, mindfulness, and experiential therapy with the Healing Springs Ranch Holistic Integrated Treatment Model. He's an educator, trainer, and coach for both the medical and mental health clinicians, bridging the gap again and integrating the innovative treatment approach at Healing Springs Ranch. He is also, you guys will see him on our homepage, abadgeofhonor.com, because he is a member with us and a regular presenter. And he's dedicated to the mental health and wellness of our first responder community. He offers real solutions that first responders can use on and off duty outside of a clinical setting. And I will never forget our last presentation that we all were together, which was February. Gosh, has it been like?
Yeah,
it's been that
it
long.
was at the Veterans Resource Center.
Yeah, where John presented, and every single first responder and spouse that was present, we walked out of there with tactics, tools, solutions, if you will, that we could utilize immediately. And if you're actively, the first responders are active on the job, they could utilize them as well. It wasn't like a distraction. It wasn't, hey, I got to make an appointment, that kind of thing. And I think that's what not only sets us apart as a program that we offer, but certainly John is an amazing clinician to be able to do that and take a group of strangers, if you will, and we're just bring us together as one united front that we walk out healthier. So welcome, guys.
Yes.
That was a mouthful.
But to your point, that was a great group. I mean,
Yeah.
we both have presented to first responders before, and we love it because it's a phenomenal group to work with and such dedicated people. And that day was great. I mean, everything they laid out, they were open-minded, they could receive it. And that's important because we can offer everything in the world, but if someone's not open in their heart and their mind to take it in, it just goes out their ear, and then they're back to choir practice and other things. So I really want to honor that group that day because that was a phenomenal experience.
Yeah, and one of the things that we do talk about as part of each presentation that we've done is this component of addiction. And like I said, it's most prevalent. Why is alcohol most prevalent with first responders? Because it's legal. You know, I could drink myself to sleep, get up in the morning, I had no hangover, go to work, no smell of alcohol, do my job, good to go. And you can do that night after night. And then what happens?
Till you can't.
Till you can't,
Yeah.
right. And John, you and I have talked about how post-traumatic stress, everything that you're exposed to, and it doesn't matter how many traumas, the longer it goes on, that locker, that box gets full of everything that we're experiencing until we try to put that next trauma, and we try and lock it away, and boom, it all comes flooding out.
It does, and it comes in, I've always said this, and I want professional feedback on this. Addiction and post-traumatic stress, they run side by side, but they got to be treated very differently, right? We got to treat the addiction first before we can treat the mental health aspect. Is that correct?
Well, sure. I mean, if someone is struggling with active addictions, it's kind of hard to get in there and do any of the work because they're not in a good place, as John was saying, to receive it. So you've got to obviously deal with chronic addiction, and when people are dependent on substances, you've got to kind of get over that hurdle. But interestingly enough, they're all expressions of unresolved pain, of trauma. Even PTSD symptoms itself, obviously, is letting us know through the body and through the mind that there's some suppressed pain. And even symptoms of alcoholism, symptoms of depression, anxiety. There's also process addictions that I don't want us to miss, whether it's pornography or gambling or codependency, workaholism.
Check.
We really have to all check with ourselves, because it's very easy to lean into a process, especially the ones that are kind of rewarded, like being a workaholic. So check. So it's definitely, they're treated differently, but on the same token, they're coming from the same place, and it's a wounded place.
But thank you, that was perfect. That's actually the answer I was looking for. But what I see a lot, and what me and Sam try to preach of vetted resources and proper treatment for the proper person. And we see so many times that somebody battling PTSD, someone will turn around and go see a therapist, right?
Yeah.
Well, I've been drinking myself almost to death. Shouldn't I go to AA first, or shouldn't I get treatment for my alcohol first? No, just go to a psychiatrist. They can't treat that problem first. They got to dig. Don't we have to fix the addiction first before we can treat the mental health? Is that correct?
You're on, and that's why, like at Healing Springs, they come in. It's an isolated group and area, so you can't drink or use while you're there.
Right.
So we can do simultaneously. We're addressing the addiction and we're addressing the trauma at the same time. Now, you bring up a very, very good and super important point: is that therapy and other forms of recovery need to be working in collaboration. Because sometimes well-intentioned people from these great 12-step groups, well, all you need is your 12 steps. I think it's one of the greatest things out there, except when it comes to trauma and other pieces, you need some therapy for that, some other support. There are these wonderful therapists out there, and they do great work, but they go, well, you don't need that 12 steps, you need trauma work. Well, nice try, it's a great idea, but that's why we collaborate together and say, well, we need both. Now, of course, you have to be clean before you can go in and do the deep work. Because what will happen is you'll go in, you do this deep work on trauma, you'll share it, and that night you're going to drink more than you ever have in
And
your
it's all
life.
come back.
Yep.
And it's going to be worse. And the brain can't process that. Yeah.
See, I'm checking a lot of boxes as you're speaking. Yeah, I've experienced this firsthand. I think I was lucky to find the practitioner that I was put in touch with because she recognized the signs. I mean, I was open. Here I am, people think Secret Service agent, law enforcement officer, they've got this picture in their mind, and I'm sitting on the couch, very first time I'm in the office, and a door slams, and I mean really hard, and I'm hitting the ceiling like a cat, okay?
Right.
So if you can imagine that, and then I just burst into tears, right? My system was on such overload at that point because I had no way of processing except through just let's not deal with it, let's not feel anything, which meant Sam was at the bottom of a bottle every night and became multiple. So the EMDR that I went through, the treatment, like I said, she knew exactly what was going on, and so it was that simultaneous
And that's the way to do it.
mesh.
Yeah.
And she had at that time, we think EMDR is this new novel thing. I mean, I'm talking like 2003, okay? And it goes back to Vietnam. It just was never talked about as a treatment protocol, especially for post-traumatic stress. And we hear it more and more in the first responder community, the effectiveness of it. But it's more than just that. It's more than following the lights and the tapping or the paddles that vibrate. And I know you guys out there, you have minds that have just wandered. Especially when I
They're
said
like paddles. What?
paddles that are vibrating. What the hell's
What
going
the-
on here, Sam? There you go. So we have fun on this show too. But see, I can curse and do some comedy at the same. I'm branching out. See, John's rubbing off on me. But yeah, it really does take a skilled clinician
Yeah.
to be able to recognize, all right, I've got somebody who cannot see straight by midnight, has to use alcohol to go to sleep, is functioning the following day, and obviously not coming to her, I'm not operating a motor vehicle drunk or anything, is able to come into therapy, communicate, but it is all about that. I've also done 12-step, so 12-step is wonderful, but if you're drinking because you're suppressing that pain, that anxiety, the trauma, for me, 9/11, you can't do one without the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to even try is in a way it's a great way to fool yourself, to think, hey, I'm in this program, or I'm doing this, where you've never addressed the underlying cause.
Well, that's
underlying issue.
If you're focusing on the behaviors, and that's part of the problem of our society at large, is we focus on the behaviors instead of what's underneath the behaviors. So if you go to a place where your hand can stop doing this and you stop drinking, you think, oh, I've had success with this. But if you don't deal with the underlying pain, then you'll start doing this, or you'll start spending or gambling or pornography. So yeah, it's even called addiction substitution. So we've got to be careful not to focus too much on just the behaviors and start to recognize, wait a minute, those behaviors serve a purpose. What's underneath those behaviors? What's driving those behaviors? And even in the mental health industry, not all clinicians know to do that. And sometimes with AA, it can't, like John said, I'm never going to poo-poo AA. It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
It's saved lives.
great.
And it's a fellowship and it's connection, and it's a very valuable resource. But if you just focus on not doing this, without looking at what's underneath that, you're missing a very important piece. And so then you hear words like a dry drunk. People that have a lot of the thought processes, or they've substituted another addiction, while they can pat themselves on the back and say, "Hey, I've got 10 years of being sober." So we got.
But I smoke 3 packs a day.
cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
So we got to dig deeper, and that's in honesty. If you want to destigmatize addictions and mental health, when you start looking at why it's happening, which is the pain, then we level that playing field. Because if you stress anybody enough, more than what they can manage or tolerate, or you take a sensitive person who's kind of naturally an emotional stuffer, and then add trauma on top of that, add a stressful job on top of that, every single person has a breaking point. This is not about genetics. This is about pain. And we all have a breaking point. And when you start speaking from that place, nobody's above it. Every single person has a susceptibility to addiction, depression, anxiety, if the right amount of stress is applied to that person. So when you speak from the hurt, the playing field is leveled, and there's not the stigma starts to go away.
2 things I just want to say with the breaking point.
I know where you're going.
And I just want
to, the same place.
I want to clarify the breaking point, because there are a lot of people, and this is where mental health gets so complex, because the breaking point isn't always what you see on TV, where somebody is going to go nuts and go crazy. It could be an inside, well isolated breaking point that nobody notices.
Absolutely.
Right? And
Absolutely.
isn't that mostly, they hide that breaking point. They don't show it. So, I mean, that's the dangers of not getting the proper treatment. So it's
Well,
not.
how about even go? That's the danger of not even knowing how to ask,
Well,
or being told, close that door, shove it down. You got work to do, right?
right, but everybody sees a breaking point, the last straw that broke. She
think
had a
the
mental
external.
breakdown, and it's all external. A lot of times, and especially in the first responder and the veteran fields, those breaking points are never shown because of the training that we had. We're told to hide it. We're told to suppress it. So that's why a lot of that stuff is not seen.
Well, and I don't know if I've mentioned this, but my husband is a Plano firefighter paramedic, going on 32 years now.
Oh, okay.
And so I've learned a lot. So I have a passion for helping our first responders, obviously. And something that is wonderful, but can also be a conundrum, is I've talked to him, and he'll talk a little bit about some of the things he's seen over the years, and it's like, oh my gosh, I couldn't handle that. I mean, when you pull up and there's a child that's been in a car wreck that is dying, that's the age of your own child. I mean, the way that can trigger you. I'm like, I don't know how you do it. And what I've learned is you have to suppress your own fight or flight response, and you go to protocol. It's like boom, boom, boom. You go up here. And in an effort to stay calm and level-headed and to manage the situation that is making the bells and whistles go off in your body, that this is an emergency, life-threatening situation, you have to shove that all down, go up to your intellect, protocol. So you kind of go to this space and you shove that down. Thank God, because if you couldn't, they'd be all over.
That's the training.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the training that we get.
So the training is obviously very valuable for the needs at that time. But where we're struggling is helping people recognize, if you don't come back to what was shoved down, it will build up.
See, you bring up a good point, and we touch on this, okay? Your husband's a Plano firefighter, right? He goes to that trauma. He goes to that injured child, right? And he suppresses it. He puts it down, right? Then all of a sudden he gets back on a truck, and he goes to the car accident with the teenager that's dead, right? So he suppresses that down. Then he goes to the fire where the firefighter is injured, and he suppresses that down. And in 3 or 4 calls, he's suppressed so much stuff down. Just to get one out is hard.
Right.
Now, that child that he first saw in the beginning of the tour is suppressed on the bottom with multiple traumas on top of it.
Right.
So how does that, it gets to be the norm. It's like having back pain. You wake up with back pain every morning, it becomes the norm. It's just, I'm good. You go to the chiropractor, he puts you into adjustment, you're like, wow, am I supposed to feel like this?
Yeah.
Right? So I think first responders get to a point with suppressing all that trauma that it almost becomes the norm of their life.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what feels good and what feels bad because
We're not in touch with it
we're
anymore.
not, right.
Well, your
We're
head
more in
has
touch
to be
with,
disconnected.
we're more in touch with training.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, and protocol.
Yes. So you literally just, in order to sustain all that pressure, all that suppressed emotion, you literally kind of have to detach your head in a way. Your mind and body become disconnected. So the circuitry from here to here gets stymied. It gets disconnected. And so you either live up here or you live in this. And so a lot of times the bodies will start speaking out. So my husband goes on all these heartbreaking scenarios, right? And I don't know the stats on this, but I know that paramedics and firefighters have the highest death rate within 5 years of retirement
Yep.
of heart disease.
Yep.
Right.
So you start thinking about these heartbreaking situations that are swallowed down and suppressed, and here's how their body is showing and expressing that it can't take it anymore.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask both of you a question as mental health clinicians.
He's from New York, if you didn't.
I just kind of thought that.
You just said either I'm going to live up here
Yeah.
or I'm going to live down here,
Yeah.
right? Is a human mind, is our brains able to process that?
Process what part?
To work in both places?
It can.
Well, what happens is you get disconnected and you're either kind of more up here, and these are the people that are very intellectual, kind of flat, don't have a lot of emotion, just kind of live in this space up here. Doctors, when they get accused of not having good bedside manner,
Right.
it's because they've had to go up here, because if they lived in here, they wouldn't be able to be good doctors. So they have to suppress all those painful feelings of watching people die and keep their head about them.
Right.
So you can live up here, but those people tend to have a lot of physical symptoms, high blood pressure, heart disease, IBS, all kinds of physical problems because they're all up here. And then there's people in their bodies that are very hysterical and reactive and overreactive, and we're seeing a lot of that on the news. So there's a lot of reactivity, but they're not grounded here. So the treatment approaches, if clinicians don't understand, there's a disassociation between their mind and their body. The circuitry between these two have been interrupted. And when that's interrupted, our physical bodies are going to have problems, and our emotional body, so to speak, our emotional mind, our psyche is going to struggle.
Right.
So you're either going to have complicated medical issues or complicated psychiatric issues, or bounce kind of back and forth between all of those. So good therapy is about teaching people how to reintegrate that. And the vibrating paddles and the stuff that with the EMDR, what they're doing is it's called bilateral stimulation. So both sides of your brain, so if we can get both sides of the brain going back and forth, it starts to kind of repair that circuitry that got broke down. And when John does his mindful work, what he's doing is he's helping people make a conscious effort to start to connect with this.
Right.
So if you go to a therapist that just does cognitive therapy, they've left the body.
Right.
If you just do mindfulness or emotional type therapies that doesn't keep them grounded here, you're just kind of colluding with being lost in your body. So therapists, and we do a lot of training all over the world on how do we bring these two sides together, because your profession has taught you have to separate them. And our culture teaches us you have to separate them, because our culture says, oh, suck it up, it's not that big a deal, have another beer. We live in a take a pill, buy something else, drink
Yes.
something else. There's a pill for everything. So we are not being taught in our culture how to sit with this space, how to connect with that, think about what you're feeling, and talk about what you're feeling.
That's because nobody wants to, we've gotten to a point, I think, and I've watched it, I have a 13-year-old, and what, from the minute he started school to where he is now, and it's like everybody wants to alleviate the pain.
Yes.
Everybody gets a trophy.
Yes.
Nobody, you don't learn from that.
Correct.
You can't grow from that.
There's no emotional endurance.
If everybody gets a trophy,
Right.
what the heck do the first people
Where's the
that-
motivation?
Right. Everybody gets
Yeah.
a trophy. Okay, so what does first place mean? I mean, growing
Right.
up, it
No.
was first. You got we had the color, so blue was first place, red was
Yellow,
second place,
yeah,
green.
and then the white was third place. And if you didn't place in the top three, go get better and come back the next year.
Right, tryouts, baseball
Right,
tryouts.
right.
Now they don't even have that anymore. But we're building a weaker generation.
Correct.
We're building a weaker generation, and that's our fault.
I don't know. It's our fault because if you want to go with, I don't like to say weaker because I think there are a generation that has parents that understand that in the home life that have a very good understanding and baseline of hard work, of dedication. We're fighting against the sitting in front of the computer screen because what do they do all day in school? Sit in front of a computer screen. I'm not joking, folks. They're learning on computers, on iPads, on now it's bring your own BYOT, bring your own technology because of COVID. But they're in front of it. And even though they're engaging, they are taught, especially boys. There's some major bullying with girls, but I'd say especially with boys, stop crying. It's no big deal. To brush it off. It's
inbred from the very beginning.
Self-perpetuating, but the fact that we haven't learned from it, that we've just decided to not try and communicate it so that, you've got a kid that 5 years old, you recognize some behavioral issues, isn't an addict by the time they're 21. All we're doing, I'm not even going to say we, all that some people have decided to do is just make the playing field level, take away as much pain as possible, and that doesn't do anything
Right.
to help them realize drugs are wrong, alcohol, dependence on drugs are wrong, dependence on alcohol. Well, because Miss Jones, sorry if you're Miss Jones, I'm not saying Miss Jones in 3rd grade, and then I had her again in 4th grade, said, well, I'm just going to make it easy for you guys. You don't have to turn this assignment in tomorrow. You can turn it in whenever you want, as long as you get it in.
So where this comes from, part of it, there's two pieces there. Is that each generation is a reaction to the one before. And so we talk about cross-generational trauma. So within every family system, each generation is responding to the other one. So if you have, for example, the baby boomers who had to go through their own experiences, they were responding to what happened in their own lives. If you go farther back, you look at people born lived in the 30s during the Depression, other components, the way they think, the way they save, keeping money in their mattresses, all that made sense at that time. And unfortunately, the concept that happens is they go, oh, well, this is great for me. This will be great for my kids. So we have one group that says you got to suck it up and tough it up because no one's going to catch you. And that was true for a long time in our society. You had either made it or you didn't. So that's how they taught their kids. But then we go to the next generation and there's more opportunities there and more abilities, but the parents are teaching that way. They're overly tough in some cases, too much hard. Then they go, oh, I'm never going to do that to my kids. So now they make it super soft and super easy for their kids. Now at some point, these kids are going to get really mad and say, no one ever taught me how to grow. No one ever taught me how to learn. And they're going to turn around and be super hard on their kids because they're going to crash and burn. Right?
Nobody ever taught me that throwing a Molotov cocktail into a van full of human beings is wrong.
Well, I think part of that is
I just took it to the extreme.
So that's a really good point. And part of what that is teaching people the most important concepts is with the families getting grounded, getting connected, and deciding what the family values are and how do you raise. Because certain things on the outside are always going to change and always going to be different. But if we can give core values of accountability, integrity, growth, true compassion, understand what that means, because compassion, as I understand it, and this is one of the things that happen in the therapy field, is we say we got to be compassionate. Be compassionate to your kids. People interpret that as being nice.
Right, exactly.
So you have empathy. You wish them the very best. Missing ingredient, the secret ingredient, is you expect the best. Mm-hmm. Now, when you have all three of those, you have the winning combination. Now, there was a generation just expected the best out of their kids, and we had a lot of A-team players, but there were a lot of those kids from that generation where they were just pushed, crashed and burned. And we saw that too.
Or rebelled back.
And never got the job. And I'll show you, and we see that in the 60s, right? So the answer is balance between all these things. So if we're able to go, okay, I expect the very best from you. You don't do things that harm other people, which is not okay to do that. At the same time, I believe in you and think you're a wonderful human being. And at the same time, you really need to go out there and achieve. If we get all those together, now we have a combination that's going to heal. And therapeutically, that's the same thing too, to bring it back. Because as a disconnect I see sometimes between some therapists, not all, because you had a great one. We know a lot of great ones. And the ones that are trying to help, but they're too far on that misunderstanding of compassion side. Mm-hmm. So we want to help people go, okay, you're in pain and you're suffering. But also, first responder talk, you got to be able to step forward. You got to really go into that pain, and you're still accountable for your behavior. So I think when my experience when I first started talking to first responders, if I'm too soft, they check out on me. It's like, oh, God, this guy's warm fuzzy. We're going to hug it out. All right, buddy. I'm not saying kumbaya. We're not going to go snuggle later. I'm not done with you, right? But, you know, the flip is also true that if we're just too intense and we always suck it up, then we get in pain. Mm-hmm. So the answer is we have to adjust. Our state of mind needs to adjust to the situation. Therapy needs to adjust to the people we're working with. So I tell people all the time, Melissa says the exact same thing. We're not saying get rid of your anger. We're not saying get rid of your toughest. We're not saying don't get rid of your hustle. We need that. Mm-hmm. We're saying also add in sensitivity. Also add in moments of connecting to your pain. So we open and close that door. And a lot of people first come in and think they're just going to cry. Oh, you're going to come in, we're going to get grounded, we're going to do mindfulness, we're going to cry for a while, we're going to get angry, we're going to be human beings. You know, so what you talked about before. Then we're going to learn how to close that door in a healthy way, show up at work and do what we need to do. And then open that door up again with family members and friends. And that's where it gets powerful. Because then I can turn to the right person and say, hey, I need help right now. Kind of lean on you. And then when I'm out on the job, I can just tough it up and act like everything is okay. And that's when we find balance. So I think those are the kind of the ways we can do it, to your point of we're out of balance. We all agree.
Oh, yes.
Right now. It's too soft.
Yeah. Well, and you'll have parents that will say, isn't it my job to protect my
Yes.
child from pain, to protect my child from being hurt? And I'm like, no, it's your job is to protect them from danger.
Exactly.
Your job is to, you don't want to protect them from pain or discomfort. You want them to go through it. You're going to teach them how to get back up. You're going to teach them that this is a normal experience. You're going to get stronger by allowing yourself to feel this. We're too quick to try to sweep away the discomfort. And so when you tell parents that, it's almost like you're telling them to be a bad parent, because in their mind, I'm supposed to protect them and I'm supposed to do make them feel better. Yes and no. If you do it all the time, then they never know how
to deal with it.
Yeah, and so they never know what failing at something.
Right.
Right.
Failing just means, okay, I get another opportunity to do
we
better
go.
the next time.
Yeah.
And you know they and first of all, you are not a failure. The thing that you're doing failed. Just let's get that out. So nobody.
Before we do run out of time, I do.
Is it time already? No way. Oh my God.
Wow. I know.
Did we
Like
just go
that.
through some kind of time warp? Because I
I
just
know.
wanted to say, if John came into every single police department and explained things the way he just explained, we wouldn't have a problem.
Well, we're already 45
Yeah.
minutes into this. I'm very interested in the beginning. You Melissa, you said you're working on breaking the stigma for mental health. What steps right now are you looking at? Because that's what we're trying to do, and we're looking at different ways. I would just want to hear what your how you're looking to break the stigma.
Well, part of it is exposure, like being here with you guys now and being able to have John and I explain this so people understand it. Because what you don't understand, you tend to judge. And if you judge it, then it turns into me versus them. So part of reducing that stigma is looking at we're all susceptible to this. And I like to teach by giving examples that people can relate to. And it's really just about exposure, and speaking to people and getting in front of groups and helping people to learn to take it on further, to keep carrying that baton. It's a cultural change.
Right, well, that's what I was just going to go at, culture, because we can break the stigma in some spots. And I want to bring this up real quick. Fort Hood, right here in our backyard in Dallas. All right, we had a veteran suicide today. He was found hanging. All right.
Was he a veteran or active?
He's a vet. He was active. I'm sorry.
Active. Yeah, he's active duty. They've got some issues going on there.
See, Fort Hood military base. I'm sure they've gone through all these programs. I'm sure the upper end, everybody's known about the mental health, but they've already had 8 suicides this year on that base. 8.
And they've also found bodies.
Well, one suicide was a perp. So
Yeah,
we're
okay.
going to count.
Yeah.
So, but we had seven suicides on a base that we're supposed to be breaking the stigma in veteran suicide. Why are we not getting across to these people? Are we doing something wrong? Are we not bringing this?
I think we're at a good start. I think we're doing more than what we used to do. And that's important to remember, because when you said that, my heart sank. I mean, that's not okay.
No.
It's just,
no.
it's simply not, because these are wonderful human beings serving our country, doing the right thing. And in the process of that, they're getting battle scars. Well, two things. One, they're getting battle scars from when they went in, mentally and physically. And then their own childhood, because I hear this a lot. When me and Melissa both hear this a lot. They say, I know I'm a first responder. I'm also a human. I need to address my own childhood and my own pain. Because that's the losing combination. We ignore our trauma from the beginning, and then we ignore the trauma from now. And that's when we find out when people start taking their own lives or going to addiction. And the thing that I would lay forward as a thought, and maybe we come back and talk about it, is, because this isn't mentioned as much, when you work through this stuff, and I know you know this because you talk and live it, your life opens up in a way that you may not even imagine. And we don't talk about that enough. Is listen up, everybody. You talk about your addictions. You connect to it. You get with a good therapist, and you work through your trauma. It gets better. It's no longer, oh, my life sucks and I don't drink anymore and I'm toughing it out. It's your world will improve with time. Your brain gets healthier. Your body gets stronger.
It's like going to the chiropractor and feeling
exactly. When you said that, that's what I was thinking
Yeah.
about. That's what we need to shoot for. Is listen up. Let's move forward. Not just move away from something. What are we going towards? Our best performance, our best selves, better lives, better relationships.
It's no longer a survivor, it's a thriver.
It's a thriver.
It's a thriver. It's
Yeah,
finding your
amen.
purpose. Because everybody says, well, how did you, I've slipped up a couple of times,
We all do.
but the desire, and people are like, well, Sam, you were addicted, so isn't that run? I know for myself that I was adopted. I did not come from a family of addicted people. Because I don't, on a given day, call it stress management, call it whatever, have that desire any longer to go drink. I've dealt with the pain, I've processed it, but the biggest thing out of that is I found a purpose out of it. And Travis Howes, who wrote a book, amazing book, Finding Your Post-Traumatic Purpose. If you can connect with that, and you let your purpose drive you, what we're doing with the badge of honor, John, being a part of that. I mean, how we could be going through the shittiest day, whatever. We do a presentation, and it's like a complete 180.
It's a new day.
It's a new day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's looking at your past, learning new ways to manage
Yeah.
it in the present, and finding your purpose in the future.
Absolutely.
I mean, all of those.
So if you are a first responder, there is hope. If you are finding, and you'll know it, if it's one drink the next day and the next day, and it keeps building, and you need a drink or something else to numb the pain, to calm down. Hello, I'm talking to you. There is help out there, confidential. How do people reach you guys?
You can go and look up Healing Springs Ranch online. It's in Tioga, Texas. We have a wonderful website that talks all about our program. We have 24-hour intake call. Even if you're just thinking about, maybe I want to just call and see if I would what the program's about. Should I even go? Just call and let's just talk to you about our program. You can read a lot about it, but if you just want to talk to somebody to see if it'd be a good fit for you, just call.
Right. There's no commitment right there. You
Right.
just to hear
Just
somebody
take the
out. Hear
information.
somebody out. Yep.
Wow,
This
is awesome.
Or you can go to the Badge of Honor website and link. We have your link on
Yes.
Healing Springs Ranch. Link on there. You can click on that as well. The most important thing is make sure the therapy is correct for you.
And that's part of what you guys
that's what-
do
yes.
by intake and talking.
Yeah,
to
Absolutely.
Yeah, and when we, once again, me and Sam say vetted services. Healing Spring Ranch is a very vetted service. It's not one of those broker agencies that are out there that we are hearing so much about on the first responder side of our first responders and our veterans being brokered out for certain reasons. This is a vetted agency, so feel confident when making that phone call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you guys for being on. This was, my gosh,
quick.
It's too quick. Yeah, way too quick.
This is good.
And so we got.
Well, John, you got to show exactly. Well, John's got to
Yeah,
show. You got
you've got a show every
Right.
week, correct?
We do. You can find it on Facebook, and Spreaker, and also YouTube as well. It's a Healing Spring Show, and we kind of do the same thing y'all are trying to do.
Right.
We bring experts in to talk about it. We had a great guest once called Samantha Horwitz. She was fantastic on the show. I'm a little biased on that one. And pretty soon too, we'll give you a heads up. We're going to be rebranding the show. It's going to be LifeWorks Wellness Show. Because we heard people say, to the point we talked about today, is a lot of us do recovery work, that we need to shift into life work.
Yeah.
And so we'll get that brand out for everybody as well, and probably have you back on. Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I mean, with that, there's support around. Everybody needs support. And with COVID, you have a 501c3 section of what you guys do at Healing Springs. Whatever you can do, if Healing Springs is talking to your heart, because you need help or you want to help them, check them out on the web. And speaking of support, we can't do the show without a whole heck of a lot of support that goes beyond the 4 mics that we're talking into. If you'd like to support the show, go to abadgeofhonor.com. That's our main website. Click on Mad Radio. There's a donate button right there. Every cent, I'll say, counts. And hey, we have a YouTube page. Thanks to John, who took the time to set it up. So
Downloading videos there.
Uploading.
Downloading.
I know what you meant.
I'm doing one of those things.
Yeah, it's something.
So folks, let's show our appreciation for John. All of the shows are there on our YouTube page, which is Mad Radio Texas. Okay, go there, hit the subscribe button. I'm just going to say, we don't have enough subscribers, so please go and subscribe. Another way to support.
That's right.
I've been told it's the most unique way. Speaking of,
I was just going to bring up September 26th, talking about breaking the stigma. September 26th, the Highway 66 Bridge in Rowlett is officially going to be renamed to Heroes Bridge. Between Third Watch, the V-Rock, Badge of Honor, Survive First, Trauma Behind the Badge, Blue Help, we've all collaborated. We're all getting together, and we are looking into putting a memorial park for our those who have lost the battle with post-traumatic stress. It will be the first in the nation's history, place to reflect, remember, and think about the way our heroes have lived and not how they died. This is a great place for families to heal some of the wounds of that stigma. So September 26th, please come out and honor our heroes and their families on that day.
And with that, to everybody out there on the front lines, fighting the good fight, we are with you. We back you 100%. Please stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Talk to each other. Choir practice is great. Use your mouths for talking instead of drinking. John.
All right. Once I want to thank our guests, and you guys stay blessed. Keep healing, and thank you. And
Thank
Sam,
you.
until next week. All right. We're out.
Catch our show,
by so
A Time
quick.
to Dream, every Thursday
kept
from
looking at
noon
it,
to
I'm like,
1 Central Time. On our show, you'll hear